This is Spiritual Souls Sliding Sideways, Chapter 4, Pulling Myself Together. I will find acceptance. My anxiety will flee. I can be whole, spirit and mind set free. I understand the hell I have created. I understand the roads of pain I have walked down. I understand places and time that I cannot return to. I am the maker of my misery. I have done so much to create the vault of suffering I live in. There is only so much you can do once you've made a choice you did not want to make. Looking back on any negative choices can bring you one step closer to insanity. When we try to think less of the choices we have made, it can also be insane. When it comes to anxiety, there is no cure and there is no suppression. Suppression often makes it worse. Anxiety occurs when reality changes at such a rapid pace that the mind cannot keep up. When we are in control of our lives, then we feel little to no anxiety. We have less anxiety when we can predict our outcomes. Anxiety occurs when we make a choice or when someone makes a choice for us that the mind cannot absorb or accept. Our life's purpose is to have a foundation and a variety of choices. The lack of foundation is the pinholes in our lives. The lack of stability can make us feel disorganized. Distance from our core causes a lack of mental stability. This affects both us and our surroundings. The greatest hell is to be far away from what the mind wants. The mind, in its carnal selfishness, overrides any common reasoning. The obsessiveness that comes from anxiety is the result of the mind's need. The mind wants what matters most to us. We can only try to let go of what the mind values. The mind values order and predictability. Many reasons cause anxiety, but most of those reasons involve detached feelings. We get detached feelings when we feel alone. We feel alone when we feel disconnected. When we feel disconnected, our mind can run on autopilot. When your mind runs on autopilot, you will experience the sensation of having no control. There is a reason for anxiety. There is a purpose for anxiety. Anxiety is the warning sign that we have gotten too far from ourselves and others. Anxiety is the sign that we have become disconnected from reality. When we fall down the tunnel of anxiety, it can feel like a free fall into darkness. When a person feels like there is no hope, that is the insanity of selfish mind. When we uncover the true selfishness of the mind, we reveal our mental truth. We have little control over our minds. We want the mind to forget certain things so we can feel in control. We must discover how close or distant we should be from others and things. We can manage our anxiety. The mind is very selfish, and the greater the selfishness, the greater the darkness. The mind can be selfish with whatever we let in. We experience anxiety when we lose what matters, and the mind processes the loss at a gradual pace. Each day we live in a lesson in what we can and cannot handle. Each day is a day in which we must understand how fragile we are. What can break us? We need to know what can happen that can cause a mental breakdown and anxiety. How fast can our minds turn on us? How fast can the mind process anything? Anxiety is the mind engaging in a gradual processing of reality. The longer we have something, the more we want to keep it for ourselves. The longer we have something, the more we become attached. Become aware of your attachments to anything. The loss of attachments can cause anxiety. We can believe we are stronger than our minds. We can treat the mind as more than a processor. The mind is only our processor. We can't control the mind. We can't control our mental processor. The mind is a design beyond our comprehension. We are stuck processing what we can process. The process of the mind can be the slow road to our anxiety. The mind is not us. It is an object in which we dwell. The mind is something that makes sense of the world the best it can. The spirit is the true self, and the mind is what the spirit inhabits. The mind is only a processor. The creators predesigned the mind to be what it is. The designers designed the mind to function how it functions. We can try to override the mind. We can try to force the mind to do something it was not designed to do. We can't force something to be what it was not meant to be. We are the intelligence within the mind. The mind is only the thing processing the intelligence of the spirit. We can compare the mind to a TV and the spirit to a TV signal. The signal coming in is the intelligence coming into the TV. The TV is only the receiver of the intelligence. When the signal and TV are working together, you have harmony. When the signal gets cut off from the TV, then the TV remains blank. The blank TV is the reality of what happens when we die. We can try to watch a TV in bathtub water. The results of the TV in the water are the malfunction along with losing the signal. The TV can no longer pick up the signal. The water is the insanity we have introduced to the TV. The TV sits in the bathtub, which is the loss of signal and life. When we misuse the mind, then it is like putting the TV in the bathtub. We have control of the signal. We do not have control over the TV. Someone has already programmed the TV to pick up a signal. You do not control how the TV picks up the signal. You do not control how well the TV functions and how long it lasts. Engineers created the TV for a pre-designed signal. You can pump many signals into the TV all day, but it will only pick up the signals for which the designers designed it. Sending too many spiritual signals to the mind is the same as taking a baseball bat to your TV. The baseball bat will not help the TV process better. We need to understand how the mind processes spiritual signals. We want to control how the TV receives the signal. The wrong signals to the TV are like plugging it into more power than it can handle. Forcing the wrong signal would be a pointless effort. The mind is a function that we cannot control or bypass. You cannot control the process of the mind. The mind is an organic machine. The mind functions in the way that programming dictates. The spirit goes beyond the mind. The spirit is intelligence. The designers designed the mind to process the spirit. The spirit comes from another reality. The reality the spirit comes from has unlimited potential. The spirit was in harmony when it existed in spiritual reality. The spiritual reality was a design in which we could imagine and create. The spirit was limitless in the spirit world. A barbaric mind received the spirit. The mind can access certain parts of the spirit when it is worldly. The human mind can access the full intelligence of the living spirit. We can access spiritual intelligence when we are less worldly. We are less worldly when we enjoy life but don't worship it. God can change the design of the mind to process the full spirit when we turn to Him. The spirit is and will always be a higher existence. The mind will always be the lesser and inferior intellectual processor. The mind isn't the same as intelligence. It's the spirit connected to the mind that makes up intelligence. The mind and its design only activate upon the spirit entering the body. The spirit enters the body and the mind starts processing. The spirit and the mind become the soul. The mind is pre-designed, so it cannot be overridden by the spirit. The mind being a pre-design is only a function. We can gain a better memory and better skills the more of the spirit we can access. The spirit enters the mind and the mind responds to the signal. The mind without the spirit is empty. The spirit can only attempt to process information through the mind. When we force the mind to process spiritual things faster, we can get anxiety. The spirit is essential for understanding the intellectual functioning of the mind. When you force the mind to process something it cannot, this is the same as trying to use a blender as a toaster. The spirit is better without the mind as a processor. The spirit without the mind can process much faster. The spirit placed in the mind limits how fast the spirit can process. Our spiritual component is pure intelligence. Choices we make take time for the mind to process at its own speed. When someone enters a new factor into the mind, we can only see how the human mind responds. When we try to get our mind to process whatever we want, we will learn our mental truth. The spirit without the mind processes all information at light speed. We could only dream of the mind processing the spirit that fast. We can try to understand how fast our mind can process information. Anxiety filled my mind. My spirit knew what my mind couldn't yet understand. I came to a profound realization of what I needed to grasp. I had a backlog of information to process in my mind. My mind could not keep up. The result was super anxiety and mental overload. Overload came along with a feeling of absolute disconnection. Disconnection was the feeling of how little control I had over the situation. My mind needed to catch up with processing the information I needed it to. The slow processor that my mind was gave me anxiety. I felt my mind was running a slow race. My mind did not understand my urgency. If my mind could process information faster, that would bring me to acceptance sooner. Acceptance would decrease my anxiety. I was desperate for acceptance. We can want the mind to process as fast as the spirit. The mind, being what it is, can only receive, process, and regurgitate information. The mind is a dangerous place because it needs to adjust to whatever information we give it. The mind learns how to interpret information with new concepts. Concepts come from the spirit. Spiritual intelligence doesn't matter. The mind will always be our anchor. Anxiety is the result of slow mental processing. When we allow the mind to process at its own speed, we accept what the mind is, and it can decrease our anxiety. It does not matter what we are processing, negative or positive. Let the mind be what it is. The mind processes positivity faster because we are not forcing the mind to process it. The mind can process positive information faster because positive information is not traumatic. The mind processing negative information is force-feeding it. The mind frequently rejects the processing of negative information. What opens the mind up and what closes it off? What slows the mind down and what speeds it up? The difference in speed impacts how information affects the mind. The mind by design will react in a unique way to a person's mental design. The translation of information is unique for everyone. We can only learn at what capacity our minds can function. The mind is a place of discovery. We need to take a step back. Let's analyze how our minds understand and process spiritual information. Anxiety can arise when the mind struggles to process information. We can't control the mind. We can only learn how quickly it processes information. Controlling the mind is like asking our hearts to pump 1,000 times more blood than they can handle. The heart is a design, and by that design it functions as it should. The mind is flexible. The mind will open and close. The mind will slow down and speed up. We are still not in control of the mind, even on a spiritual level. God is in control of how the mind will process and perceive information. Divine intervention can transform the mind to process amazing information. Still, it is a processor. When we die, we take intelligence with us, the spirit, and leave behind the processor of the spirit, the mind. We leave the mind behind as a dead processor when we die. The signal the spirit is who we are and what we take with us when we die. We must understand that anxiety is pushing the mind beyond anything it does. I do not like limits and boundaries that are counterproductive to my existence. Limits and boundaries can help us understand why the mind redlines. There is one way to speed up the process of anxiety. That is when we find acceptance. We can be spiritually aware of the rapid processing speed of the mind. We can only hope to maximize the mind's full processing power. We can pray for our mind to process our whole spirit. The designers could have created the mind to process only 10% of the spirit. There may be a built-in bypass that can allow us to go beyond 10% of our mental processing speed. Connecting deeply to our spirit can trigger transformation. This helps the mind process more. The mind can be a high-caliber processor. The mind can still have a difficult time processing information it is resisting. The mind may not have the power to process faster. The spirit is power. The more we can access the spirit, the more the mind receives the processing power it needs. The more processing power the mind receives, the faster we can come to acceptance. Acceptance is the relief from anxiety. The mind depends on what we create as our reality. The mind depends on the stability and consistency of how we choose to live. The mind settles into what is the most consistent reality. When our reality shifts and our minds can't keep up, we face a conflict of reality. The conflict of reality is when the mind is trying to function. When we have too much conflict, we get anxiety. The mind creates a foundation out of what we are most subjected to. We can subject the mind to new elements. The mind may not want to process new elements, and we have anxiety. The mind seeks to shield itself when dealing with negative information and anxiety. The mind is a processor that forms a reality in which we can navigate and function. We need enough information for the mind to process. It helps with safety, comfort, and survival. Not having enough information would be like living in a three-walled house with no roof. The mind creates a foundation in which it can function and process information. We may not provide the information that the mind needs to process to form a foundation. The lack of information we have can cause anxiety. Anxiety is the cause of having no focal point in life. A life with no focal point is like standing in the middle of the forest with no compass and no sense of direction. The more the mind searches for a foundation in which to exist, the greater our anxiety can be. The mind is not capable of stabilizing without a firm foundation. The reception of too much information or too little information can cause anxiety. Foundation is the stability of the mind. The mind stays stable when it gets enough information. This helps build a solid foundation. The mind is a processor that has dependency. Like the heart needs blood. You are not likely to decide for the heart it does not need blood. We cannot decide the mind does not need a foundation. The mind is selfish and will cling tightly when a foundation is formed. The mind is less likely to let go of what it feels makes up our foundation. The mind is a survival processor. The mind performs its intended functions. The mind is a creation designed to form a stable foundation. The mind processes and stores information it finds valuable to our reality. When we remember something we never thought we should, that is what the mind finds valuable. When the mind chooses to forget something, that is the mind's way of telling us it is not important. The mind can choose to forget even when it is important to remember, like where the car keys are. The designers created the spirit for the mind in this earthly existence. We need to understand the mind's need for a firm mental foundation. It is the foundation that gives us a center and peace. If we want peace instead of anxiety, it is best to stop and listen to the spirit, which is our core. If we can access the spirit, then we can gain new information. We may not be able to change our minds as they are designed, but we can connect with our true selves. We can access the spirit to process the information we want. The spirit is the processing power the mind can use for better processing. We cannot change our minds as processors, but we can access a way to upgrade how they process. The spirit passes information into the mind. The spirit can transfer power to the mind. This can change the speed at which the mind processes information. Grasping your mind and spiritual core is key to knowing how your mind processes things. We need to understand how the core and mind work together to get the best processing power. There is never a guarantee in life. I am still processing my mind and spiritual core to work together. I can only explain my journey as far as I have come. I have made so many mistakes my mind could not understand. The cause and effect of my mind's processing power is my anxiety. I had to allow myself to stop and listen to the hum of my mind and the vibration of my spirit. I have had to focus on my mind and spirit for them to coexist. Even though I am the soul, two in one, you would think that the mind would match my spiritual intelligence. We are not in control of what God designed. Everything is a design, and the design is not ours. We can only learn about the design that we are, spirit and mind, soul combined. We are here to learn. We often learn by trial and error. We can try to do whatever we want in life. We cannot control how the mind responds to life. We may think we have control of the mind when we get the response we want. The response we want usually indicates that the mind was designed to respond that way. We understand what the mind really is when it does not respond as we want it to by design. Anxiety is the product of what the mind cannot accept, even when we beg it to. Anxiety is the cause of the mind losing what it cannot accept losing. Anxiety occurs when we try to rearrange our minds faster than they can be rearranged. The cause and results of anxiety are understanding what causes it. The mind does not serve us. It is only here to process the spirit. The mind and spirit serve the will of God. We can have an ego big enough to try to have complete control. When we are left uncertain, our minds are likely to respond with anxiety. We must be aware of the mind and its processes, not the process we wish it had. When we reach beyond our mental ability, then we reach into a place of uncertainty. We may succeed and we may fail when wanting the mind to process information. Anxiety peaks when the mind struggles to process information, no matter the speed. We do not have the spiritual control over the process of the mind. We can only feed the mind information. The mind will respond and process at its current limits and boundaries. I have dived into what it all means. I have a mental processor and spirit that I did not create. I still am learning my spiritual and mental processes. We can learn by choosing to explore and understand the true nature of things. What is reality? What is the imagination of the spirit? What is our life's difficulty with trial and error? We can imagine how the spirit and the mind differentiate. We can imagine how the mind and spirit are the same. I have lived my life by trial and error. It took a long time to slow down to listen to my core better. When we listen, we make room for more information. When we listen, we can hear how the spirit and mind can get along.